Hi everyone, I'm very excited to have with us our guest Aleksandra Łukaszewicz Alcaraz at our vlog Posthumans. Aleksandra, first of all, welcome back to NYU and welcome to our vlog.
Thank you, Francesca, for invitation. It is my pleasure to be here today with you, as it was pleasure previous times, and I really appreciate all the work you are doing in the post-human area, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I also want to mention that I already had the honor to interview Aleksandra in our previous interview. The topic was posthuman, non-human personhood and cyborgian selves, connected to her book, which I really highly recommend, Cyborg Persons or Selves. You can find it on Aleksandra's page on academia. In this interview, we're going to talk about posthuman agency. Well, I'm going to talk a little more about that, but first I want to mention that Aleksandra Łukaszewicz Alcaraz is doctor in philosophy, specialized in the fields of philosophical aesthetics and theory of culture and art. She presents an interdisciplinary approach combining elements of aesthetic and social reflection. She received various prizes and grants, among others research grants from the European Commission and a fellowship from the Kosciuszko Foundation, where she actually started her book project, which eventually again was published in 2019 with the title Cyborg Persons or Selves. Good news is that it was published as an open access, so again you can download it for free from academia.edu. And also great news is that Aleksandra is currently preparing the revised version of the book for Palgrave Macmillan. So we're really looking forward to the book coming up. Thank you so much, and I want to say that this is very exciting for me, addressing the topic of posthuman agency, because we're actually holding our 4th Global Symposium at NYU in the spring 2020, precisely on this topic. Again, as you can see in the background, the topic of our 4th Posthuman Global Symposium is precisely posthuman agency. It will be held at NYU April 30 to May 2nd, 2020. Our keynote is actually Catherine Hales, wonderful thinker, really a pioneer in the field of posthuman studies, with her book How We Became Posthuman, 1999, published by University of Chicago Press. The deadline for proposals for our symposium is December 31st, 2019, and this is how you can find it. You go to posthumans.org, you go on the page Global Symposiums, Conference Series 2020. So again, this topic, we really need to think about posthuman agency, so that's why I'm so excited to talk about it with Aleksandra. And there is going to be a whole symposium on this topic at NYU in the spring. So again, you can send us a proposal or you can come as an audience as well. So again, thank you so much, Aleksandra, for proposing this topic for our vlog.
Yes, thank you also for accepting it. And I'm very happy noticing from various sides, also with the symposium that is going to take place in the spring, that this topic is really becoming so important, what I also agree with. So I'm really also happy that we can dive more into this theme.
Thank you so much, Aleksandra. So first question that I have for you is, how do you define posthuman agency? And how is that different from other ways to reflect on agency, non-human agency or human agency? What is specific about posthuman agency, and why should we talk about it?
Traditionally, human agency, or traditional agency, is related to a human being that is rational, intentional, that is a coherent whole, thinking, considering, and taking up the actions to do something in the world, that has got some causes that we can logically observe and so forth. But post-human agency is questioning that this kind of agency is the only one causing the effects, and showing that sometimes this notion is also obscuring the understanding how the things happen. As a very important example brought by Jane Bennett in her paragraphs on agency of assemblages show, when she was talking about the power blackout in United States in 2003, and she was asking who is to be blamed for this? Who is responsible? And then she traces that there are rather assemblages of material forces, but also immaterial forces, human agents, but also a political environment, atmosphere, wires, computers, coal, a lot of elements that co-acted together to cause the blackout. So there is no one single person to be blamed for this, to be called for responsibility. This idea of agency of assemblages is related to posthuman vitalist materialism, thinking about life as such that is driven by desires, intensities, that is not possible to to close just in boundaries. So this posthuman agency is trying to think about different actants that co-act together in order to cause the effect. It is not just one intelligent, rational person that is causing something. It is rather the mixture of different forces. This also appears in Bruno Latour's work when within his actor network theory. Also for network, sometimes he uses synonym assemblages, although he prefers the word network. Also he is talking about interrelations between material forces and elements of and humans, causing something altogether and influencing one the another. However, this idea, although is very informative, and I generally agree with this, but I agree with this on ontological level. I think that it is kind of descriptive way of approaching things. How did it happen that something happened? How did it happen that the power blackout appeared? How did it happen that something else appeared? But living in societies, living in communities, we also need the notion of responsibility, because then nobody is responsible. If we are talking about this kind of assemblages, nobody is to be called for responsibility, to be blamed or to be prized. It won't be also like my achievement to reach some point, but of whole circumstances. And although, of course, I appreciate and I try to recognize all the influences and all the conditions that allowed me to achieve something, I also would like to feel that it is something of me, that I did this, I did wrong or I did right. Of course, not in like transcendental terms, what is wrong or what is right, but rather to be responsible. So then there is endeavor how to find an agent, and I'm very happy to notice that these kinds of endeavors are already in place. For example, on the last conference when we met in July at the Catholic University in Lille, or the Beyond Humanism Network Conference, which I love so much. I cannot really express what does it mean to me.
Just for everyone, we're talking about the Beyond Humanism Network that's starting back in 2009, a wonderful conference that is mostly organized in European universities, although not always. We had, for instance, one edition in 2015 in Korea. But yeah, definitely it's a really fascinating, wonderful place to meet other scholars who are interested in posthuman studies.
Yes, so there I have noticed that there are appearing already trials from different sides how to think about the agent, and of course not exactly individual agent like in Enlightenment times, but somebody, and these trials might be from the Eastern perspective, like from Far East Asia. But they are also appearing from the Western perspective, as for example Catherine Hales does. And her recent book, Unthought, The Power of Unconscious, is also heading into this direction, because she is directly involving herself in the discussion on assemblages. She does not resign of it at all, and she even prefers it than networks, because networks is kind of edgy and full of nodes, and assemblages bring about also these notions of flesh, of life, and they are more flexible in a way. So, but she is talking about cognitive assemblages. They are not individual agents, but they are cognitive assemblages. Also, there is the place for the think power, for material forces, and for different kind of forces. But there are also cognitive elements in this, brought by either technical systems or also by humans. And she powerfully argues that we also need this kind of notion in order to analyze the ways how power is produced, effected, executed, and so forth, and also be able to transform the effects of power. Although they are not individual agents, but there are already kind of trials to recognize the responsibility of assemblages that have got this cognitive element with themselves. As for example, she gives the example of automatic traffic surveillance and control system in Los Angeles. That is kind of assemblage of computers, material devices out in the city, humans, and so forth.
Thank you so much, Aleksandra. And in this sense, I would like to ask you a question. Before I do that, I would also like to mention for the people who are watching us that the first book that Aleksandra was mentioning is Jen Bennett, Vibrant Matter, 2015, on which I actually have a question for you, because you refer also to vital materialism. And I wonder if the notion itself of vitalism, it's on some level reducing which kind of assemblages can we expect to include in this conversation, because it's related to the notion of life. Vita in Latin, it means actually life. And I wonder if this life is actually biological life. So that's a question that it's a little more specific, for the details. But the wider question that I have for you, which I think maybe is more interesting, is about the relation between posthuman agency and posthuman ethics. And in this sense, when you talk about, posthuman agency can go beyond what has been the classic history of traditional Western approach to human agency, rational, based on reason, logic. And I think it was very interesting your point that the risk is losing responsibility, moral responsibility, for instance. Now, how do you connect the topic of posthuman agency to posthuman ethics, for instance?
Thank you very much. Maybe first I will refer just shortly to this vital materialism. Yes, I consider it a bit reductionist. I feel it as a kind of as connected to the Schopenhauer's point of view, although Schopenhauer is not the theorist really often mentioned in this field, but he's exactly talking about the essence of everything that there is a will of life. There is a will of life that exists in stone, in chair, in star, and human, or in a plant and an animal. It just is represented differently, but everything is, at the end of the day, it is the will of life. So yes, this is this is a good point, because, like, strategically, because historically and traditionally we have praised a lot of reason, intellect, logic, abandoning body, abandoning life, abandoning this what is paradoxical and this heterogeneous, trying to shape everything and everybody into a specific form. So strategically, I think that it is a good move, but from the other point of view, I think that it is reductionist. There is no place for, at least as I see it, for intentionality, for the level of intentionality, for the level of culture. It is good, like, to again, to understand ontology of things, but in order to understand our life world, the world we are living in, the world of culture and civilization, I think that it is not enough. So then I can pass to your second question about the relation between posthuman agency and ethics. It is extremely important, because if we how to transform understanding of agency so that it is neither individualistic, not just talking about the influences of different forces, how they are out there, and it is essential to recognize the responsibility and rights of people, and also the moral agents, because it is also interesting. Posthuman ethics usually says that the life is the most important, or this will, as Schopenhauer would say. The life understood, of course, as a zoe, rather, this life before the discourse, and not life understood as already organized in the form of organism, in a bios way. So ethics, here it is important to understand how, sorry, I mixed myself. So posthuman ethics is usually saying what is right, and trying to say what is right and what is wrong. And I'm not trying to do this exactly. I'm not trying to involve myself into this specific ethic discourse. I'm rather trying to think on the meta-ethical level. That means about the possibility of ethics, not about how it should be organized, but about the possibility of ethical organization. So, so then there can be different ways how we can transform our, until now mostly human ethics, in order to embrace also different kinds of beings, entities, and persons differently embodied. But I'm not trying to state anything what should be or should not be.
Thank you so much, Aleksandra. And of course, there is much more to talk about with Aleksandra. So first of all, if you're in New York City, please come and meet Aleksandra tomorrow at our New York Posthuman Fall Summit 2019. She's going to be one of the speakers. And also she's going to be back in the spring for our conference, our fourth Posthuman Global Symposium. With actually our keynote is going to be Catrine's, that has been mentioned a lot in this interview. It's been a great honor, Aleksandra, to have you here with us. So again, Aleksandra Łukaszewicz Alcaraz is doctor in philosophy. She has this book that I really recommend, Cyborg Persons or Selves, that you can actually download online from academia.edu, and is actually going to be coming up in a revised edition for Palgrave Macmillan. Thank you so much, Aleksandra, not only to be with us at NYU for our conferences, also for being one of the guests who keep coming back and giving insights about this important topic, which is, again, cyborg personhood and non-human agency. But also thanks for for being a real original thinker and a brave one. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.